Search for Nancy Guthrie. We do know 3 people were detained. Police activity could be seen 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home, and local police and several unmarked vehicles, including forensics and SWAT teams, could be seen gathering.
Had deliberately interfered with the digital infrastructure of an entire neighborhood, effectively blinding multiple security systems simultaneously, pointing to a level of operational planning far beyond what a typical abductor would possess. An antenna-like device seen in the pocket of the person captured by Guthrie's doorbell camera prompted questions about whether it was a signal jammer, which could have caused a service outage in the area. If confirmed, the implications are staggering. A signal jammer would mean the suspect did not merely disable one camera. He may have knocked out the entire neighborhood's digital eyes in one sweep, arriving and departing under a veil of manufactured darkness. It would also mean investigators are looking for someone with access to specialized electronic equipment, not the profile of an impulsive criminal, but someone with resources, knowledge, and a plan that was days or weeks in the making. Inside the home itself, the forensic work uncovered further disturbing findings. Investigators were facing challenges processing mixed DNA found at Nancy Guthrie's home that did not belong to her or those in close contact with her. The Pima County Sheriff suggested the mixture could contain DNA from several people. Mixed DNA at a crime scene is among the most complex forensic puzzles investigators encounter. It raises a possibility that more than one person entered that home. It raises questions about how long they were there. And it deepens the already profound mystery of how a woman who went to bed in a quiet house ended up with drops of her blood on the front porch and gone by morning. The gloves discovered near the property became one of the investigation's most revealing threads and one of its most frustrating dead ends. The sheriff's department said investigators found a total of 16 pairs of gloves in the area around Guthrie's house, most of which were later traced back to members of search teams. DNA from gloves found a few miles from Guthrie's home did not match any entries in CODIS, the FBI's national database. The suspect, it appeared, had left behind DNA, but DNA connected to no one already in the system. That meant investigators were not looking for a known criminal with a prior record. They were looking for someone who had never been caught before. Faced with that dead end, authorities turned to one of the most advanced forensic tools available to modern investigators. An FBI official confirmed that investigative genetic genealogy was already underway. This forensic method uses crime scene DNA to identify potential relatives through public genealogy databases when traditional law enforcement databases, like CODIS, produce no matches. It is the same technique that cracked the decades-old Golden State Killer case, ultimately identifying a suspect through the DNA of distant relatives who had voluntarily uploaded their genetic profiles to consumer ancestry websites. The fact that the FBI deployed this method signals both how seriously they are treating the case and how determined they are to identify the person behind that mask, no matter how long it takes. Investigators also fanned out beyond the immediate crime scene. On February 13th, the Pima County Sheriff's Department began an operation at a residence 2 miles away from Guthrie's house. 2 people were removed from the residence, and roads in the surrounding area were closed to the public for about 4 hours. One of the people removed was taken in for questioning and released by the following day. That operation, carried out with enough force to close roads and remove multiple individuals, underscored how seriously law enforcement was pursuing every possible lead within the geographic radius of the crime. And yet, each lead that was chased and released only deepened the sense that the answer remained frustratingly out of reach. The FBI was also looking at the broader criminal landscape for context. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffin-Daffer raised the possibility of connection between Nancy Guthrie's disappearance and a Chilean theft ring that had been charged in connection with a spree of burglaries targeting professional athletes across the United States. More than $2 million worth of goods were stolen from the homes of NBA and NFL players in a series of break-ins beginning in October 2024. Coffin-Daffer pointed out that such rings were still operating in affluent communities like the one Guthrie lived in. Whether or not that specific connection holds, the observation illustrated something important. The Catalina foothills was not invisible to organized criminal networks. Wealthy, quiet neighborhoods, precisely because they are wealthy and quiet, can be scouted and targeted with a level of deliberate attention that their residents rarely anticipate. Another former FBI agent offered a different theory entirely. She suggested the crime was not motivated by opportunistic theft, but by a personal fixation. I do think that was someone that was either upset with something Savannah Guthrie had done or had some obsession with her, and that's why they targeted this family. She said, "It's just too targeted." Two theories, one pointing toward professional organized crime, the other pointing toward a deeply personal motive, both grounded in the same undeniable observation. Whoever took Nancy Guthrie did not choose her randomly. Through all of it, the family has remained in an almost unbearable state of suspended hope. Savannah Guthrie said in a video on Instagram, "We still believe. We still believe in a miracle. We still believe that she can come home. Hope against hope, as my sister says. We are blowing on the embers of hope. We also know that she may be lost. She may already be gone." Those words, spoken by a woman who anchors one of America's most watched morning programs and who is now living through every parent's and child's worst nightmare, carry a weight that no amount of broadcast experience could have prepared her for. And behind those words is a family offering everything they have. Savannah Guthrie announced a $1 million reward for information leading to the recovery of her mother. As of today, the investigation remains open, active, and intensely focused. The Pima County Sheriff's Department said the case will continue until Nancy Guthrie is located or all leads have been exhausted. Sheriff Nano stated, "We have, the evening of January 31st, 2026, began like almost any other evening in the quiet, sun-warmed foothills north of Tucson, Arizona. An 84-year-old woman shared dinner with her family, and when the night wound down, she was dropped off at her home in the Catalina foothills at approximately 9:45 in the evening. She went inside. The door closed behind her, and then, by the following afternoon, she was simply gone. That woman was Nancy Guthrie, mother of NBC Today's show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, and what investigators would later discover inside and around her home would send shockwaves to one of the most closely watched missing persons cases in recent American history. Nancy Guthrie was reported missing on February 1st, 2026, after she failed to appear at a friend's house to watch an online church service. Evidence recovered at the residence quickly indicated that Nancy had not left on her own terms. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos stated publicly that he believed she had been abducted. Within hours, the case escalated from a local missing persons report into a full-scale multi-agency federal investigation. What followed would reveal a level of premeditation and criminal sophistication that has left law enforcement officials simultaneously closer to answers and still deeply unsettled by the questions that remain. The first and perhaps most immediate shock came not from what was found in wild disarray inside the home, but from what was not. There were no smashed windows, no overturned furniture, no desperate signs of a physical struggle. Bloodstains found at the scene were confirmed to belong to Nancy herself. Drops of her blood were discovered on the front porch. A detail as haunting as it is specific. Blood on a porch, but no chaos inside. That contradiction alone told investigators a story. Whatever happened to Nancy Guthrie, it happened fast, and it happened at the threshold between her home and the outside world. From the very first hours of the investigation, authorities understood they were not dealing with a random crime of opportunity. Retired FBI agent Maureen Walder said plainly, "This is not a house that you just come upon and decide to rob. It's just not that." The Catalina Foothills neighborhood where Nancy lived is affluent and residential, the kind of place where people know their neighbors' routines. For a masked, armed man to appear at that specific home at that specific hour, investigators concluded early on, required knowledge of the layout, knowledge of the timing, and knowledge of the woman who lived there. The FBI's formal involvement came swiftly, and its significance was not lost on anyone watching the case. A multi-agency investigation led by the Pima County Sheriff's Department, with assistance from the FBI, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and search and rescue teams, was launched almost immediately, encompassing extensive forensic analysis, neighborhood canvassing, and a sweeping review of surveillance footage. When federal agencies mobilize at that speed and at that scale, it is rarely by accident. It signals that what lies beneath the surface of the case has dimensions that exceed local jurisdiction. And in Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, those dimensions would only multiply with time. Then came the ransom notes. Multiple ransom notes of undetermined origin demanded payment in cryptocurrency, with 2 deadlines that had passed by February 9th. Authorities neither confirmed nor denied the validity of the notes. The silence of officials was not indifference. It was strategy. Every word spoken publicly in a case involving potential ransom negotiations carries risk. Confirming the notes could embolden a captor. Denying them could shatter the only thread of hope. So investigators chose silence, and that silence itself became one of the most telling features of the investigation. On February 2nd, a local CBS affiliate reported receiving a letter demanding payment for Guthrie's release. CBS News reported that investigators reviewed the letter, took it seriously, and shared it with the FBI, though authorities declined to confirm whether it was sent by someone holding Guthrie. The note was said to contain specific details about Guthrie's home and what she was wearing on the night she disappeared. That last detail is critical. The specificity of what she was wearing, a detail that only a handful of people could have known, suggested the person behind the note either had direct access to her that night or had been watching her with a precision that is deeply unsettling to contemplate. Then, on February 10th, everything shifted again. FBI Director Kash Patel released 4 black and white images on X showing a masked, armed intruder wearing gloves and a backpack outside Guthrie's home. Investigators reported that the intruder attempted to tamper with the video doorbell by trying to knock it off with light taps, and when unable to, subsequently covered the lens with foliage from a potted plant. Patel stated that data from the device had been successfully recovered. That single detail, the attempt to disable the doorbell camera, confirmed what investigators had long suspected. This was not a spontaneous crime. The perpetrator arrived knowing there was a camera. He came prepared to neutralize it. He just did not succeed entirely, and that failure will become one of the most important breaks in the entire case. After forensic review of the doorbell camera footage, investigators described the suspect as a man between 5 feet 9 and 5 feet 10 inches tall, with an average build, wearing a black 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker Pack backpack. He was also carrying what appeared to be a handgun positioned in a holster. The image of a masked man, armed, standing at the front door of an 84-year-old woman's home in the pre-dawn hours, carefully trying to blind her security camera. It is the kind of image that does not leave you quickly. And for investigators, it was far more than symbolic. It was forensic evidence of a calculated plan in motion. But the evidence trail did not stop at the front porch. Federal investigators began examining whether internet service disruptions in Nancy Guthrie's Tucson neighborhood the night she vanished could be tied to the abduction. Neighbors reported that their home security camera footage from that night was missing or marked not available, and authorities reportedly asked residents about unusual connectivity problems around the time of her disappearance. This was a development that many observers had not anticipated. The possibility that someone,